Okay, so hello again, everyone. This is Sienna Perulis-Cook, Associate Director of Communications at Dragon Trail Interactive. And thank you to all of you who have joined us for our first webinar in the year of the Ox 2021. So today we'll be talking about mice and corporate travel and what we can expect and how to plan for the coming year and the years to come. The webinar today will last for about 45 minutes to an hour, and it will be broken into two main sections. So we'll start with a brief introduction about some of the biggest questions around mice and corporate travel right now, as well as areas that have been identified as having the most potential for growth in the near-term future. Next, we'll move on to the most important and central part of the webinar, and this will be a panel discussion with 4 industry experts who will be able to share with us their own experiences of working in mice and corporate travel in China over the past year, as well as their advice for planning for the future. And then at the end of the webinar, if we still have time, we will open the floor for your questions and do a Q&A session. So if you have questions at any point during the webinar, either for the panelists or for myself, please do send those in using the Q&A button on your Zoom control panel. And if we have time, we'll get to all of those live at the end, and then anything that we don't have time for, we can follow up with individually after the webinar. Tomorrow, I will be sending everyone a copy of the presentation slides, as well as a link to a recording of the webinar. So you'll have all of those materials for reference, as well as if you want to share them with any colleagues who perhaps weren't able to attend the live session today. So we're really honored to have with us today a hugely knowledgeable and experienced panel of speakers joining today from China. So first, from Beijing, we've got Linda Wong, who is founder and managing director at Destination Asia China. Joining us from Beijing, as well as Liu Ping, who is president of the Society for Incentive Travel Excellence's China chapter, as well as founder of China Star. Joining us from Shanghai, we have Dragon Trail's own Director of Business Development, Saxon Booth, as well as, last but certainly not least, Huilian Duan, who is Vice President for Sales and Marketing in APAC for Maritime Hotels, as well as the President of the Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International for Greater China. So thank you to our speakers for joining, and I'm really looking forward to asking you all the important questions about mice in a few minutes. Before we dive into the prospects for business travel, I'd also like to say a few words about Dragon Trail, as we changed our name last week from Dragon Trail Interactive to Dragon Trail International. And this name change reflects an expansion in our services and the scope of work that has really been ongoing over the past couple of years and was very much accelerated by the pandemic. So we have expanded our focus from B2B and B2C digital marketing for Chinese outbound tourism. And this marketing for Chinese outbound tourism is still really the core of what we do, and certainly an area in which we specialize. But we're now also very active in the virtual event sphere. And this is not just limited to the tourism industry. Starting from last year, we are now running online events for the MICE industry, for education, and for global trade. We've also run hybrid offline-online events in recent months, and we're working with the Chinese domestic and inbound travel markets, as well as outbound. We're also developing capabilities for marketing and events beyond China in the future. And in 2020, we actually hosted 2 major MICE industry events on our TNTM virtual events platform. These were IBTM as well as IT and CM. And we're delighted to be working again with IT and CM as their virtual event partner in 2021. So to get into the introduction to the webinar, what can the business travel sector expect in terms of recovery? And where are there the best opportunities in the near future? I'd like to discuss the answers to these questions that can be found in many of the biggest industry reports that have come out within the last 6 months or so. And then we can hear from our panelists about their actual experiences working in the MICE sector during China's recovery. So really the first big question to ask is, what will recover first, business or leisure travel? And there are pretty convincing arguments on both sides of this. So in some ways, it's kind of a hypothetical, theoretical question. But in China, where you had flight bookings that were back up to 2019 levels already by last August, it's not just a hypothetical. We really can see what domestic travel recovery has looked like. So first, let's consider the argument that leisure travel is going to bounce back before MICE and corporate travel. Now, looking at international travel over the last 2 decades in 4 countries, as you can see in the slide here, McKinsey and Company has illustrated very convincingly that historically business travel lags behind leisure travel recovery after a period of economic downturn. And the recovery for business travel is more volatile. We do have to consider economic factors here in 2021 and the years to come, and to what extent companies will have to cut their travel budgets. Of course, we also need to consider health risks and liability, and the fact that risk assessment or risk management is going to be very important to companies when deciding whether to send employees on a business trip. And this could be another factor that holds back the recovery of business travel. Moving specifically to look at China, Dragon Trail's own consumer sentiment survey in September of last year showed greater uncertainty and later plans for both domestic and international business travel compared to domestic and international leisure travel. However, we also need to take into account that this survey was not a survey of regular business travelers necessarily. It was just a survey of people who regularly travel, period. So it's very likely that the survey respondents were people who are more likely to travel for leisure or business, or equally likely to travel for leisure and business, regardless of the pandemic. Of course, globally, business travelers do make up only a small proportion of all travel, but they account for a disproportionate share of revenue for companies like airlines. So this takes us to the argument that actually it could be business travel that comes back first. If you can compare the results of McKinsey's Chinese travel surveys in May of August of last year, we can see that business travel actually had a steeper recovery than leisure travel did. Although leisure travel also did have a very significant recovery, as we know. McKinsey's survey findings also revealed that confidence in business travel grew more dramatically than confidence in leisure travel during the 3-month period between May and August. So confidence for both kinds of domestic travel, leisure and business, were around the same level by August, although confidence in domestic business travel was much lower than domestic leisure travel in May. So there was really a fast comeback in confidence for business travel. Of course, recovery for any international travel is going to depend on travel policies and restrictions. And I think one of the most convincing arguments that international business travel will recover earliest, at least for China and within East and Southeast Asia, is that when you look at the international travel corridors that have been set up with China since last spring, with South Korea, Singapore, Thailand, and Japan, in every single case, it's always been business travel that's prioritized. And we can see that there are arrangements for leisure travel that either come months later or haven't materialized at all yet. But realistically, probably a better and more accurate way to project recovery is not to just see business travel as one thing or leisure travel as one thing and pit them against each other, but to segment the market and identify which specific areas of business travel are going to come back first. So there's really wide industry consensus here that, like for leisure travel, local and domestic business travel will recover before international travel, and that small meetings are going to be able to come back before major events. I think those are just kind of logical conclusions and things that we can see happening in reality. In terms of which industries we're looking at, the rule of thumb is that the harder hit the industry economically, the slower the recovery. So industries like manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, and construction, which have done better comparatively than other industries, are likely to start traveling first as well. Then for regions, East Asia looks the most promising. Of course, a lot does depend on countries' own travel policies and how those impact potential recovery. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that China and South Korea were both holding large-scale business shows for sectors like the automotive and export industries as early as April 2020, and they've continued to hold these kinds of large events. So this definitely shows that East Asia is way ahead when it comes to post-pandemic business events. If you're looking for opportunities and growth in 2021, then these are the trends and areas that are widely identified by industry reports. And I know our panelists will also be able to comment more on many of these areas as well. So the first opportunity for growth is the Asia Pacific region, which I just mentioned. For hotels, in terms of staying competitive as we come out of the crisis, digital resources are going to be key, from simply being able to offer guests high-speed internet in case they're working remotely or attending meetings online, to developing contactless and smart digital touchpoints. Remote working looks to be a long-term trend too in the world, and there could be big opportunities here if you can catch them. So destinations that offer special remote working visas can attract the new digital nomads. And then once those remote workers arrive in the destination, that creates opportunities for the hospitality industry, for co-working spaces, and many other related services. As I mentioned earlier, risk assessment is going to become very important for companies sending employees out back on the road again. And this also creates some opportunities for insurance. So for example, Etihad and Emirates Airline both already are offering insurance as part of their product as a response to the pandemic. So we might see other kinds of initiatives like this within the travel sector. For airports, the best way forward would be adapting tech upgrades similar to hotels, as well as digital solutions to manage crowds and disperse people better at the airport. There will be some opportunities in shifting incentive travel and team building events to more remote and nature-focused areas. This is another trend that's very similar to what we've seen already in leisure travel, and our panelists will definitely be able to speak more on the topic. At least in the short term, focusing on small events could result in lower profit margins for event organizers, but these are the most promising area for recovery in terms of events. And in the long term, we're going to need to see how virtual platforms affect large-scale events like exhibitions, and if these kinds of events could become permanently smaller, but more high-tech than they were before. And lastly, this definitely isn't the sexiest thing on the list, but if we do end up permanently doing a lot more business events online, then data security also has the potential for increased need and more opportunities. So at this point, I'd like to welcome our 4 fantastic panelists to turn on their video and microphone and join us to give us their own take on the big questions for the industry. And I will turn my video on too. Okay.
I tried, but you need to accept me, I think. You are not allowed me to open my.
Okay, I've got to turn on your. I've asked you to start your video.
Okay. Oh, but still, I'm not allowed.
Yeah, we can see you and hear you.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah.
Saxon, Linda, Leo Ping, I can see and hear all of you. Hui Lian, we've lost you. I might need to ask you to start your video. Great. Okay. So my first question is very easy. I'd just like to go around with everybody and ask you to introduce yourself and explain what you do in just 1 or 2 sentences. So let's start with Saxon.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Saxon Booth. I'm the Director of Business Development in Dragon Trail, based in Shanghai. So I work with our clients on various MICE virtual events, for example, on MICE marketing projects, in addition to all of the different leisure travel and other business that we do. So I'm really here today to talk about MICE and business travel more from a project execution perspective, some of the digital projects that we work on, and really sort of yield the stage to the industry experts that are about to introduce themselves.
Thank you. Linda, let's turn to you next.
Hi everyone, ni hao. I'm Linda Wong. I'm the managing director and co-founder of Destination Asia. I founded my company in 2006. 14 years has passed. We have a team of over 50 people. We have offices in Beijing, Shanghai. And then we are a professional inbound DMC. We are part of the Destination Asia group, which has footprints in 11 countries and 32 locations around Asia. It's a great pleasure to have this opportunity to share with you, with the team from Dragon Trails. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's move on to our speakers in Beijing with Liu Ping.
Oh, hello, everyone.
Sorry,
Good morning. Is that me? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Liu Ping. I'm the founder of China Star. China Star is a PCO and DMC. As a founder, on one hand, I'm in charge of everything of the company. On the other, I'm in charge of nothing. I'm also the president of Site China Chapter. So nice to meet you all of here. And even though I cannot see your faces, but someday in the future, I believe that they will come very soon.
Thank you. And Huilian, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Huilian. I work for Maritime Hotels, look after sales marketing in Asia Pacific. Maritime Hotels is the largest owner-managed hotel group in Germany, and we do have hotel operations here in China as well. We really look forward to bring more industrial insight with Dragon Trail and everyone in front of in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's see, I just want to pull up the questions so that everybody can see them. Although, let's see, how do I? Got it. So,
Yeah.
okay.
There we go.
Yeah, okay, so we can see that now. So, first question, very simple. I wanted to start with Linda and ask you, what trends for corporate travel have you seen in China over the past 9 months?
That's really a big question, but really I have to say that I have to be responsible and very honest with this question. I mean, until international travels resume, I have to say there's no major trend for our business segment as an inbound DMC who operate only incoming tours from around the world. Ever since 29th of January last year, we have not had any foreign groups. So there's, responsibly speaking, there are no major trend, but however, I'm sure as the news came out last night with the announcement of Johnson that the British containment measures is going to release the, I would say, the lockdown stages in 4, and then the planned date for totally lift the restrictions or lockdown is 21st of June. I'm sure with that news, many trips will start to book. So let's remain cautiously optimistic when the trips will start to book again. But of course, speaking from within the country, domestically, I would say the biggest trends are virtual tours. Like a lot of the tour guides are becoming vloggers and bloggers, and then they are running virtual tours and sites. Like the other day, I was on top of Ko Hill, which is behind the Forbidden City. There were many tour guides doing live streaming for tourists who cannot travel at this time during this pandemic. And so that has becoming a mainstream, or I would say a trend. At least the travel professionals are doing something to help themselves to stay in the business and do something proactive. And with the help of the technology, they're utilizing these platforms to make an income and then doing whatever they can. And then, of course, during the Chinese New Year, there was something that I was very delighted to discover. And then also I experienced myself, and some industry colleagues opened a hotel, like very royal Qing Dynasty style royal palace, and then hosted a Chinese New Year celebration with the way that the Qing royal families 300 years ago, how the royal families used to celebrate the Chinese New Year. That brings a new trend, which is we have been talking about experiential experiences, and then these are really in-depth cultural immersive experiences. And then I found myself really enjoying, and so I recommended some of my friends. And then of course, we also helped to sell some of these experiences during the Chinese New Year. We were not able to travel, so that really added something to our Chinese New Year celebration. And then of course, in the same time, I've shared with some panels last year, we are trying as Destination Asia to offer off the beaten track, close to nature, hiking and trekking and cultural walking tours around China. That has been, I wouldn't say very successful, but at least a very meaningful step forward. Until the real international inbound travel starts to return to China. At least my team are still working, and we are trying to experiment these experiential, close to nature type of trips, because we're doing this with dual purposes. One is to offer to our current clients within the country that has being popular. On the other hand, we are preparing these tours also in English. So we are preparing these documents and wait until the clients come back, and we'll have a brand new experience to offer to our clients from around the world coming into China. And then, of course, I have also found through my conversation with some industry colleagues, one of the few industry colleagues shared with me very successful stories, which is expert guided tours. Like, for example, they hire historians, architects, or a tea master. And then so these are kind of like the original, or in the past, before the pandemic, we call them as the themed events. But nowadays they are more in scale, more well organized, more in-depth. For example, some of the historians, instead of telling a historian guided tour to a broad topic, they're taking them to discover, for example, grottos and caves, stone carvings, and just a specific area, and make them really in-depth. And that attracts a lot of interests from people. And then they are the only one, or one of the two only ones successful in their endeavors in 2020. And the other one, of course, is because of the Chinese policy, which one of the Shanghai local travel agency offers retiree trips. And they have been one of the first ones to walk out of the shadow of the pandemic. And then I believe they were even more successful in 2020 than before the pandemic. And then so that's for retiree. And then of course, from my other, I would say it's a sideline efforts trying that I joined CKGSB, a business school. And then I've discovered that as long as the trips are organized for special dedicated group of people or associations, and they will travel regardless. That's the reason why I managed to run many events for students from business schools. And then they don't care about if they have to travel with the nucleic acid tests. As long as there's the opportunity to gather, they will gather. And it's often usually short lead time. Like in January, with only 10 days, I organized the trip for 80 people in Sanya. And then alongside with that event, I had 2 other. So I was running like 3 events at one time with very, very short lead time. So trips for associations or special groups of people who are strongly desired to build up their relationship or, whatever. So they will travel regardless. That's the trend that I see. I'm sure Liu Ping or you can share with more as we do. We too are the most active DMC travel professional during the pandemic, right?
Well, thank you. That sounds quite promising then for the start of kind of corporate travel later on. Liu Ping, what about for you? What are the biggest trends that you've seen in MICE and corporate travel in the last 9 months or so?
Along with the global vaccination, I believe that we already see the glimmer at the end of the dark tunnel. Actually, personally, I will accompany a small group to visit my hometown, Guizhou, Southwest China, about 2,000 kilometers away from Beijing. So in the mountain area, by the end of March, the guests are board members of an international association. They are foreigners and working and living in China. In 2020, in the second half of the year, when the industry started to recover, there were more small events than big ones. That is a very obvious trend in China at this moment. It seems that it also will be a trend of this year and in the future. I was invited to give a lecture to this Chinese association on the Chinese history. And so then they sent me the request and asked me to travel with them. So the trip will focus on the minority culture and nature. So lots of outdoor activities. I also was invited to join a webinar organized by Poland's Untitled Chapter. And they wanted me to introduce some destinations in China where they could have outdoor events in the future. And actually, I told them there were too many in China. And yesterday, I had an industry friend visit my home, and we talked about an event in Wuxi, and for which he is planning at this moment. I said, because Wuxi is going to celebrate the cherry blossom festival. So, and then along with the festival, they are going to host a summit. So I just asked him, why not to have a panel meeting under the flower, under the cherry trees with flowers. So he likes the idea so much, he's going to do that. I just cannot wait to see the result. And so, for domestic events in the second half of the year, 2020, and when COVID-19 was controlled in China, there are many hybrid events and the live events took place. Most of them were association or corporate events, not really incentive travel. So these days we start to receive requests from abroad for incentive travel and for Winter Olympic Games. I'm not quite sure which industries or type of the events or business travel recover more quickly, but I'm sure internationally, those industries that have business relationship with China will recover first. And something I did during the Chinese New Year, I'm so proud of it, I would like to share with you. At the Chinese New Year's Eve, I did a live broadcast and on how Chinese people to celebrate Chinese New Year's Eve. My audience were 200 British students from 9 years old to 14 years old. Okay, long story. So much for this topic. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. My next question, let's see if I can pull this up here, is for Huilian, our hospitality expert. And what I wanted to ask you is, from the hotel perspective, how has the pandemic affected demand and the services that you provide and the kinds of business meetings or events that are happening in China in hotels?
Thanks for the question. The pandemic has had a profound impact on how people live their lives and is accelerating changes in consumers' behavior. And these changes in behavior are likely to have long-term implications for our hotel industry. For example, more events will include a digital component to a live event moving forward, and this requires our hotel industry to continue upgrading our meeting facilities and provide the support to cater some event attendees who see they would like to carry out the event activity, but they are unable to or unwilling to attend in person. It's quite popular in the past few months. Then the second, the health and safety is a key concern and is likely to remain so for the foreseeable future. Like social distancing, masks, disinfectant, and contactless technology has become so commonplace as to be regarded as our hotel standard practice, especially for contactless technology will be used as an important way of making attendees feel more comfortable at the event. In the post-COVID-19 world, it will also speed up the registration and entrance, it's very important, and facilitate some business contactions and information exchange.
Thank you. So the next question is, it's really about technology. So I'm having trouble with, it's a little bit awkward going back and forth with the screen sharing, but I do think it's helpful for everyone to really be able to see the questions that are being asked. So the question is for Saxon, and it's, in your opinion, what is the future of digital events? How can we take 2020's experiences and innovations and then apply these to a world where it is safe for people to actually be able to meet in person again and travel again?
Okay. That's also another big question, but I think I would break it down into three main elements for sort of what the future holds. I think number one is that virtual events are definitely here to stay. So while they were firstly that adaptation to COVID-19 and all the obvious hard barriers that emerged for traditional events, travel restrictions, social distancing, public health, just fear and uncertainty. But many of the event organizers, whether they're exhibition companies, tourism boards, or other travel brands like hotel groups, I think they're starting to realize that digital events can be an extremely cost-effective way to achieve similar outcomes to traditional events and even achieve more in terms of scale and reach, in terms of data collection and even ongoing interaction with partners and customers beyond the sort of end of the digital event. So that is sort of, the first factor, I think, that they're here to stay, absolutely. The second factor in terms of the future, I think, is the reason they're here to stay is that there'll be some evolution into hybrid, as Huilian just mentioned. So we're already seeing some simple applications of hybrid. For example, small offline events are coming back, but they're being streamed out to an online wider audience. Or for example, if there's a panel discussion, we're seeing some, panelists at the event and others being streamed in. These are just kind of simple content applications, if you like, of hybrid. But I think we're going to see more strategic business applications of hybrid as well, where digital starts to become kind of like a touch point at offline events at all the stages, pre-event, the live event stage and the post-event stage. So for example, we can see, capacity or opportunity for pre-event warm-ups of different kinds that can take place online to facilitate more efficient networking or even one-on-one meetings at an upcoming offline B2B event. That's because the event guests have already been able to discover a bit more about each other and interact pre-event and collect information. I think also digital touch points and gamification during the live event, during the live offline event, can capture offline data. And the obvious things are things like registration and attendance, but also tracking different kinds of interaction that's going on at the offline event, whether that again is, one-on-one matchmaking appointments, so important in the travel industry, on-site surveys and other things. So all of this data is going to start giving more insights on the effectiveness of offline events by using those online platforms and integrating those digital touch points. I think that's really key as well. And sort of as an extension of that, the third factor I think in the future of online events or digital events is kind of platformization, if you like. So, I mean, digital events are really driving the platformization of event strategy and broader kind of B2B marketing strategy, I think, because we're no longer confined by time and space in the same way that we are for offline events. So I think event organizers can start to think about integration of other various sort of B2B marketing, business development and partner management objectives and channels into one platform. So a virtual event might end in the same way that a live event does, but as a platform, it can really live on. So we can integrate online training, sales enablement and co-marketing resources to support our travel trade partners to sell and market our products, for example. And a platform like that can easily be reactivated for regular virtual events, to support offline events with hybrid elements. We can have sectoral and thematic events reactivated and launched quite cost efficiently and quite quickly. So I really think the future is about building out more of an all-in-one kind of platform on which virtual event activations are just one of the sort of tools or one of the elements. And that's something we've been building out with our WeChat travel trade marketing cloud in China. And we're also seeing different kinds of platforms out, across the globe as well, web-based systems as well. So I think those three things, that they're here to stay, that hybrid is going to continue to evolve, and that we're going to see that platformization, if you like, of events. They're the three things that I think are really hold the key to the future.
Interesting what you shared about kind of online activities being incorporated into offline events. Even before the pandemic, I went to an event a few years ago that was really, it was an event in Europe, but it was most of the attendees were Chinese. And there was a lucky draw during the event that really kept us in our seats. You didn't want to go anywhere in case you missed the opportunity to win the luxury purse or whatever. And the lucky draw was it was through WeChat. So you had to kind of sign into this thing and share all of your WeChat contact information with the event organizer to be able to enter the lucky draw. And so I think they were able to build up, a really good database and WeChat group through that event that they could use then later. So I expect to see kind of more things like that. So our next question, I'd like to talk about, the good news. So Linda, as you mentioned, even here in the UK where I am, we've had some good news this week, talking about a path out of lockdown. And around the world, we can see that infection numbers and deaths are falling, vaccinations are going up. So as of last week, China now has no more high risk areas and only a few medium risk areas in the whole country. So let's say that all of these positive trends continue. Vaccine rollout is totally successful. And by the end of Q2 2021, international business travel can start again safely. So what then are the biggest challenges and how should the industry address them? I don't know if anybody wants to start with the answer to that question.
Well, personally, I've been doing some really hard thinking and planning 2021. I, of course, thought about what would be the biggest challenge if we continue to wait until tourism starts to return to China. And I foresee, realistically, the biggest challenge would be talents. Because during the pandemic, a lot of the travel professionals that leaving the travel industry, like for example, I say some of the best tour guides we used to have and they're running their vlogs and blogs, and then they are doing podcasting, or they're doing something totally different. So, which means we are losing some of the good tour guides in the industry that we used to be so proud of for selling China. Really, because we always say that, you know, to make the business, to break it or to make it, it all depends on how wonderful the guides are. So if we're losing some of these good talents in our industry, that could pose a big challenge. And then, of course, for the staff working in the office, when we say business return, it's not going to return, you know, just overnight. It will take some time because there are still some uncertainties we have to face, right? And then, so in this time, while waiting, and the staff are receiving basic salaries. I'm sure we are not the only company doing that. Everybody, in order to survive, for the company to survive, we are doing whatever we can, but compare with what they used to make. And then with the business coming back, and then their salary expectations and the reality that have to make a living. So these people are also struggling. And so these are, I see, and even the drivers, some of the good drivers that we used to train for so many years to take, especially for incentive trips. The drivers that we used to use are not cab drivers. They're not just normal drivers. There's drivers who have taken seriously training, like how to drive safely, how to work with foreign visitors. They're now doing DD drivers, or the equivalent of Uber driver. And then once they get used to that, once they are getting better paid, they may not want to return to the travel industry anymore because we have so much, higher requirements unless we pay them more. That would, of course, lead to another challenge, is that with the exploding of domestic tourism, and then with the capacity limitation, I'm sure the airlines and trains won't be able to run full occupancy immediately. So these are going to drive up the prices. So these are the reality we're going to face. I'm sure, Ping, you will have a lot of, these are really down to the earth sharing. This is what a travel professional, for me, I've been in the travel industry for 20 years. I used to be a tour guide myself. I've seen SARS. I've experienced so many ups and downs, tsunami in Japan, because I have investment in Japan as well. So all of these ups and downs, I've experienced myself. And then, so I'm speaking, if we're doing this sharing, we're sharing what true stories they are on the ground. Of course, we are still doing, like, we have our company-wide training and meeting tomorrow. It's like everybody coming to the office ever since 23rd of January last year. We've had some staff coming back to the office. I even had the opportunity to renovate my office. You can see the background. Actually, that was the work of renovation that we did in 2020 because we didn't have that much staff working in the office. So I had the luxury of time. So of course, tomorrow I'll be very happy to welcome back in the new office. But in the long waiting, and then I wait to see, of course, like I said just now, we are cautiously optimistic. We're waiting, we're doing everything we can. And then Ping, I'm sure we have met a couple of times last year. You have a lot to share, especially the challenges that the DMC faces, looking the past down the tunnel.
Thank you. So yes, let's ask you, Liu Ping, about the challenges that you see on the horizon.
Yeah. Okay, I understand that our moderator likes us to address the longer economic consequences of the pandemic that could affect MICE and corporate travel. So personally, I would like to take this opportunity to say something being in my mind for a long time, that China could do better. So because of the pandemic, all the destinations of the world are now at the same, my cat is coming. Are now at the same starting line to recover. So why China? Why should they come to China? can we ourselves, be convinced by the reasons? For the biggest challenge, I always ask myself, how much is China known by the world? So the world knows China much lesser than we expect. We have never promoted China enough, actually, in an efficient way. In the second half of the year 2020, I traveled a lot, and in mainland China for meetings and inspections. Though I have been to those places many times, I'm always stunned by its beauty, by their beauty, and I'm always moved by the people there, culture and history. I'm always touched by those changes in the remote minority area, and thanks to the poverty alleviation efforts that make those beautiful destinations accessible by faster train or by high-speed road, and with great facilities for corporate events and incentive travel. But how much does the world know this? I believe that the challenge for us and for the government as well is how to promote China precisely to the target market. And personally, I think that I have made a small, very tiny contribution to share my experience on LinkedIn and on Facebook. I do have some fans following me. China never stops promoting China. Our challenge is how to promote our destination efficiently. This is not the one person's job. It's a job for all of the Chinese people, the government, and all the people in the industry. So this is really a topic we need more time to discuss about it and find a solution.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. I also want to add, China is the most strict country in terms of the COVID-19 containment. And so the quarantine policy is going to one of the biggest challenges that we have. You know, if the quarantine is 14 days, and then so we hope that by sharing we can have a more relaxed quarantine policy once people are all vaccinated. China, over a month's time, there are 40 million people are vaccinated already. I understand in UK you have 18 million people are already vaccinated, right?
Yeah, it's very fast.
So it's fast, and let's hope that once everybody is, or most of the people are vaccinated, and then countries can open door to each other. I was jealous yesterday reading the news article about, after the announcement came out that, 21st of June, the whole country will lift, right, the lockdown policies in UK, and then 40,000 trips booked to Mediterranean area. We're just jealous, and we just hope.
I don't know if I'd be too jealous. I haven't been able to really leave the house like all year, and I see in China that people are living a much more kind of normal lifestyle. So I'm jealous of all of you as well. Lillian, let me ask you about kind of, let's say that international business travel does start up again this summer. What do you see as being the biggest challenges for the hospitality industry then, or hotels that are hosting business events?
Thanks for the question. We just returned back from Guangzhou for a sales call. And we met with a few large travel organizations there in the southern China, and we're told about this starting from July this year. So if things go with the plan, we still think the country is opening up, but not at the same pace. This is going to be the biggest challenge. Then this will tell us the mixture of the physical and the virtual attendance is going to be the new normal for our hotel event industry. I absolutely agree with Saxon just commented. The digital events have become a must-have for many organizations determined to maintain vital business connections as we look to the future, I believe it will continue to transform the events to reflect the changing customer behaviors and expectations, building on the enormous technological advances of the past few months during the COVID.
Thank you. I think that flows very nicely into my last question. And Julian, if I could get you to kind of continue to answer that one. So if you were an international or a business that really relied on international business travel, let's say a hotel or a conference center, what do you think are the most important technological or technology changes that you should be making as a business right now to make sure that you're competitive and ready when travel returns?
Right, and for our corporate clients who are maturing in the understanding of what works online, most of them knew that, especially for our key corporate clients, they knew that the online events, the hybrid events can work for content sharing and learning objectives. From the hotel perspective, we will organize all the resources to help our meeting planner, the MICE clients and corporate clients to overcome their greater awareness of the tools with which they are less familiar with, then provide assistance before, during, and after the events, especially for the event analysis, like a post-events analysis, and help them to gain this confidence in returning back to our hotel business.
Thank you. Saxon, what do you think? Let's say you're a conference center or a hotel. What should you be doing right now to make sure you're ready?
The event companies are, they're very, established, smart industry, and they're already transitioning, they're already in digital transformation when it comes to virtual events. I guess when you think about venues and, let's say hotels and exhibition centers and things like this, and other venues that offer MICE and business events, they need to be accelerating the transformation of all of their, hybrid event production type equipment. That's actually still a really challenging area. We all know at our, normal offline events, there are always still so many technical problems. It's always, one of the biggest challenges, audio, mic, video. We're now doing streaming and things like this. You need to have, all of that sort of upgrade of your capability, both in terms of your hardware, but also in terms of your people. Not necessarily all of the traditional event organizers have been trained in virtual event delivery and things like that. Everyone's been learning that very quickly during 2020. So it's really, I think, a process of upskilling on both those hardware side and on the human resources side to make sure that, you as a provider are positioned to capture the new market demand. Because I don't think, as I said, I think virtual events definitely started as a, very much a reactive adaptation, let's say, the hotness of them in the last 12 months. But I think it's going to stay because we've discovered all of these other benefits that they can deliver in parallel with the sort of traditional offline event segment as well.
I would like to add something here. We have seen event organizers in China and global wise have been quick to respond to the changes of COVID-19 and have made a remarkable progress developing and deploying technology to keep consumers connected and informed. We're often amazed with all those initiatives, like a German convention bureau launched several programs in the past few weeks. And this is just amazing and very helpful initiatives for the industry. We also learned some new virtual meeting platforms, tools that we don't even have them before COVID-19. There's one more thing I wanted to address here is like hospitality in general is a very traditional industry. But since last year, we have seen our industry leaders, our hoteliers stay very open-minded, and they just wanted to embrace those new meeting platforms, those product showcase that offer a very good opportunity to connect with the prospects and stimulate the hotel sales. We feel very, very happy about the progress.
I have one more thing to add there as well. I think kind of following on from Huilian, I think there's, and for the people in the audience today, I think as well, that are interested in kind of adaptation to hybrid and virtual, you know, China offers some of the best case studies of that kind of adaptation, the fastest and most innovative changes. I think there's still that cliche sometimes that China is learning things from the rest of the world. But I think when it comes to contactless things, when it comes to virtual, you know, absolutely the world needs to be learning more from China. You know, we've been cashless here for several years effectively. We've just got so much offline to online and in reverse integration in our daily lives. And that's all really bled into, I think, the development of the virtual event technology and industry here in China. So I think, you know, we were already ready for that almost because of all the consumer applications and things and payments and things. We were ready for that transition here to hybrid and virtual events. So there's a lot to learn, I think, from the case studies in China. And that's probably an opportunity, I think, for the Chinese industry, tech, and also hospitality and travel to actually market themselves, I think, to the rest of the world as a case study for successful transition and adaptation to COVID.
I think that's a great point. It's been very interesting here in the UK to see people last summer learn how to scan a QR code. You know, things that you wouldn't, has been going on for so long in China, and you finally in the UK get a menu with a QR code and people are like, oh, how do I do this? You know,
actually people are learning faster than we expect, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so people like my age, you believe, probably I'm not quite sensitive to the technology, but actually I learned a lot. I could be kind of a case study, never too old to learn. You know, my company is involved a lot in the hybrid and virtual events last year, and we handled a couple of hybrid events and virtual events, big one, with so many speakers, something like 200 speakers from abroad. You know, can you imagine, foreigners? So it was a big challenge, but my team learned very fast. Just like the China, everywhere is the same. And yesterday you didn't know anything about the technology. Today you become the expert. So just like that, I even gave a lecture from offline to online. You know, my audience like that because I make things so simple and understandable for them. So for me, because we work with associations, and associations before, they always ask us, so come to my office and we have a meeting. You know, we drive about 2 hours traffic time, you know, from my office to their office. Now, okay, let's talk anytime, virtual. So they like it, we like it. We can handle the problem, solve the problem so much faster than before. And also, you know, I'm considering virtual fam trips and the site inspections, and which can be done at any time. And it is also for budget saving. And actually, some of my industry colleagues have done this kind of things already. And it seems to me it's quite good. And our clients like this kind of communication. Yeah.
Thank you. I think, you know, we're getting to the end of our time here. I do see that we've had a few questions sent in from Q&A, but perhaps we could respond to those later individually. Just before we finish up, I wanted to, let's see, sorry, switching back and forth between screen sharing. I just wanted to let everybody know about our next Dragon Trail webinar, which is coming up in a little bit under 3 weeks on Tuesday, the 16th of March. And this webinar will be looking at kind of what's next for Chinese travel, looking more at leisure travel. And we will be partnering up with Travel Analyst Forward Keys for that webinar with kind of data that they have on flight bookings, as well as Dragon Trail's new Chinese traveler consumer sentiment survey. So we're currently gathering the data from that sentiment survey, and the webinar will be the first time and place that we start to release the results of that. It will be our third consumer sentiment survey. We did them in March and September of last year. So I think it'll be very interesting to see how consumer sentiment has shifted and kind of how Chinese travelers are thinking about their plans for travel domestically and internationally in the coming 6 months or so. So you can sign up for that already. Registration is open. You can find the event on the event section of our website and using the link here that you'll receive with the slides that we'll send out to everyone tomorrow. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to our panelists for joining us. I think it's been very informative, and you know, with the knowledge that everybody has and experience, I think that you know, we could do a 2 or 3 hour discussion and not run out of things to say. So thank you so much for your contributions.
Thank you very much for organizing. It's a pleasure.
Thanks,
Thank you
Sienna.
so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank
yeah, I
you.
hope that we can do international travel soon and I can meet all of you in China.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Okay, take care.
Thanks, everyone,
Bye-bye.
for coming.